Good morning, world. Good morning, Instagram. I'm Colour Sergeant Nick West. I am a trombone player in the Commando Training Centre band. And this morning we're going to be talking about becoming a well-rounded musician. Wow, the comments are coming in already. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. This is the fifth and final live masterclass in this series. The good news is we're already planning series 2. These have proved very popular. Look out for details for series 2 very shortly. It will be on all our social media platforms. While we just allow a few other people to join us, why don't we do a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. Let's play some music. Great, look at this. Look how many people are here already. Fantastic. So we are going to be talking about how to become a well-rounded musician. I'll get into what I mean by that and the subjects we're going to be covering. But first, a little bit of background about myself. I'm Colour Sergeant Nick West. I'm in the Commando Training Centre band. Have been for 2 years. I started playing the euphonium in Guernsey, where I grew up, when I was about 7, I think it was. I'm sure some member of my family that might be viewing will correct me if I'm wrong. I think I was about 7, and I started learning through a school's peripatetic service over there called the Guernsey Music Centre, which is open to all children on the island. It's a really good system. There's quite a few of us actually now in the band service that came up through that system in Guernsey. They've just celebrated their 40th anniversary last year. It's a really successful system. I'm a product of that. I started as a euphonium player. I chose to play the euphonium for one simple reason. As a young 7-year-old boy, it was the biggest instrument that I could actually play. I wanted to play the tuba, but I couldn't reach the mouthpiece and I couldn't hold the instrument up. So I ended up going for the euphonium, which was the next biggest. I had lessons through that music service all the way up to the end of my A-levels. I also learnt a bit of trombone and a bit of tuba. And then when I was kind of 14, 15, 16, GCSE age, I started thinking about what career I wanted. I knew I wanted a career in music, in playing music, but as a euphonium player, when you kind of look at it, I really felt that you're struggling to find a career as a player. So the military bands became a real option. They'd always been in my mind because my dad was in the Marines band in the 70s. So I was aware of the military band scene, and because of that family connection, the Marines were kind of top of that list, I guess. I was very lucky when Plymouth Band came to Guernsey. They used to come on an annual weekend every year. I managed to sit in with the band on a few occasions for rehearsals and a couple of concerts as well when they were in the island, and that convinced me. I auditioned for the Marines as a euphonium player in 2002, and then I joined in April 03, 17 years ago next week actually, when I think about the date. I did 3 years in training as a euphonium and cello player. I had to learn the cello. It's not something I play anymore, and I wasn't a natural cellist, but looking back now, it's something that I'm really glad that I had to do. It opened my eyes and my ears to lots of other styles of music, understanding other instruments, how to play them, how to write for them as well. It might be something we come on to later. After passing out the school, I did 3 years as euphonium and cello player in Plymouth Band. I was also covering quite a lot of trombone for a while for various reasons, and just really enjoyed playing the trombone, being back as part of a section. And in 2009, I switched over, went back to the school for another term, and studied trombone and came out as a solo trombonist. That was with our professor of trombone, Gordon Campbell. And that's been brilliant. Again, it's similar to learning the cello. It's opened new doors, understanding new styles of music, playing in some different ensembles, which I didn't get a chance as a euphonium player to do. And it's great. Best move I've made in the job, I think, to switch over to be a trombone player. After I'd switched over to being trombone, I ended up moving to the Portsmouth area, and I was in and around in Collingwood, the newly formed Collingwood band, Portsmouth band, for about 10 years in total in that area. I also did the Bandmasters course in 2015, which is a 12-month course which ignited a love for writing, arranging and composing music, writing stuff for... I've just seen that comment, Gerhard Brady. Yes, Gordon Campbell did teach me when I went to RECAT. He was the professor of trombone, yes. So writing music, having the Bandmasters kind of ignited that spark in me. And it's something that I've done a lot of since, for the bands that I'm in, and also for Mountbatten Festival, which I hope an awful lot of you were watching on Saturday night. If you didn't catch it Saturday night, it is still available on YouTube. I wasn't involved this year, so I was watching it as a spectator, and I thought it was fantastic. So let us know what you thought if you watched that on Saturday night, or were you at the hall and you were reminiscing while you watched it on Saturday. It'd be great to hear from you. After the Bandmasters course, I went to over to the School of Music as the trombone and academic instructor. And that was a really different job, actually. Probably the most rewarding job that I've done in the band service. Watching people join up and then take them for 3 years through to pass out and watch them develop as players, as people, is really good. Really hard work. You kind of learn a lot about yourself. It was the first time I'd done any teaching, whether it was instrumental stuff, trombone teaching, or classroom teaching with the academic side. So that was kind of eye-opening for me, and quite a challenge, but enjoyable as well, and another experience I'm glad I've done. After the school, so 2 years ago, I got drafted to Commando Training Centre Band, and I'm still here now, which is great. We're in Lympstone in Devon, which I'm sure you know. It's a lovely part of the country, and it's great to be back doing what I joined up to do, being part of a band, out performing, and it's great. I still enjoy the job. I get up in the morning and I go into work, and I get paid to do what is still my hobby. It's a vocational job, music, but I still enjoy just sitting in the band room playing music, working with some great people. It's fantastic. Okay, there's questions and chat coming in already. Let's do a few questions before we move on to our first topic. First, where's the question box? There we go. Have I ever played in a brass band? Our Bond. Yes, I have. I did when I was growing up. The first brass band I played in was the Guernsey Concert Brass, or actually their youth band. I started playing with them when I was 11, I think. 11. Year 7, so first year of secondary school. That was my first experience brass band. When I started playing, I was a euphonium player, but in bass clef. It was all wind band based. So brass band's obviously treble clef, so I had to learn a new clef. That brings me on to a bit of a topic, but I may as well mention it now. If you're a brass band player and only read treble clef or only read bass clef, learn as many clefs. If you're a trombone player, euphonium player, tuba player, learn all the clefs you can read. You don't know when it might be useful. It's hard work, but it is really beneficial. Become as fluent as you can in B flat treble, bass clef concert, tenor clef, alto clef, and then also if you want to get involved in kind of jazz or small like commercial work, learn to read concert pitch treble clef as well as a trombone player. It's really, really helpful. After that, with brass to answer the brass band question, yes, I then kind of got more involved in brass bands. As a euphonium player, you kind of, that's you lean towards that. And I did National Youth Brass Band for a couple of years under Elgar Howarth as well. Tom R, were you a cadet? No, I was never in the cadets. I was the military aspect wasn't the appeal for me. It was working as a playing musician, and the kind of job security and being able to play for a living really was the temptation. It wasn't, the military side wasn't something I'd grown up with particularly. A Herb, any Herb in particular? Do you have to be a bass clef trombone player? You don't. Well, we do read bass clef only. All the wind band music is bass clef. You'll also find tenor clef, and sometimes with the orchestra you'll be an alto clef. I think I've just answered that question, but just dive in and learn as many clefs as you possibly can. One more question for now, and then we'll get on to the first topic. Carmichael 5874, when did you start playing? I was 7 years old that I started playing the euphonium through the Guernsey Schools Music Service. Okay, so what are we going to look at today? It's titled Developing into a Well-Rounded Musician. So it's my idea was to keep it fairly generic and something musicians from all over all instruments can benefit from. And really, I want to try and get you thinking a little bit more. It's not going to be a masterclass where I say, go and do this exercise, use this book, play on this mouthpiece. It's more trying to kind of eat into your grey matter a little bit and make you think long-term ideas about how you can develop and ways to think about music to develop into a musician, a rounded musician rather than a player of a particular instrument. So the first topic that I want to cover is listening. It's something we all do. We all listen to music. But if you want to become a musician with good oral skills, good a personality as a musician, you've got to develop into a compulsive listener, an avid listener. Listen to everything you possibly can. Don't just listen to the genre of music that you play in, whether that's brass band, big band, orchestra, brass quintet, whatever it is you play in. Listen to everything. Listen to Beethoven piano sonatas, listen to prog rock, Count Basie, Mahler symphonies, John Coltrane. Treat yourself. Go and listen to some thrash metal. What you listen to isn't the important aspect at that point, but listen to everything. Just soak it up. If you want to learn a foreign language, the quickest way to embed that language in your head and get the sound of that language is to go and live in the country where people speak that language. If you want to go and learn Russian, you go and surround yourself with people speaking Russian. And it's the same thing with developing as a musician. You just want to surround yourself with as much music as possible. We're lucky, it's never been easier than to surround yourself with music now. Within seconds, you can be listening to anything you like. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon. It's all there on your phone, on your computer, in your car, everywhere you want to go. You can listen to anything. All of that music is available all the time. I want to put a scenario to you. You've got an exam or a performance coming up, and you don't know. You know what the piece is, but you don't know about the piece. You've never heard it before that you need to play. So the first thing you go and do is search for it on Spotify. You find a recording and you click play on the first one. The first one that comes up with that piece, we press play on it. You've got your sheet music in front of you and you listen through. And you get to the end of the piece and you say to yourself, oh, okay, great, that's how it goes. And then for the next week, few days, month, 2 months, however long, you spend all of your time on that piece trying to emulate exactly what you heard on that recording, that one recording. The question is, would you feel that's valuable listening time? Is that beneficial to you as a musician, or are we just blindly following someone else's performance? Let me know in the comments. Does that ring a bell? Maybe I'm being quite blunt with that, but I'm sure some people do fall into that category a little bit. So I would say, as much as you possibly can, your first port of call to perform a piece has got to be the sheet music itself. We can learn so much from just looking at the sheet music, and the more you do it, the more you'll be able to learn. Obviously, we've got the important things. Notes, rhythms are all written on there. We've got tempo markings, we've got dynamics, we've got style markings, and in the top right corner, you've got one of the most important bits of information, and that's the composer. It's so easy to overlook that, especially if we haven't done a wide breadth of listening to begin with. We haven't got that basis. We haven't got that sort of musical language in our mind already. If you've got a composer's name at the top right and that means something to you, we don't need to know how many. If it says J.S. Bach, you don't necessarily need to know how many children he had. That isn't going to affect how you perform a piece of music. But if you've listened to a whole load of Bach organ works and violin partitas, you've already got a sound world that you can draw on just from seeing that person's name on the top right of that sheet music. So there's lots of comments coming into that. Yes, it is the Sherwin Browns. No, it's best to listen to lots of variations and read your music carefully. Absolutely agree. We will come on to listening to lots of versions of the same piece of music and what we can do about it in a second. Once you've kind of looked at the sheet music, you've made your own opinion on what you want to say with that piece of music. Then go away and find as many recordings as you can of it. Not just what's at the top of the list. Find all sorts of things. But the words you want to, when you're listening to them, critically listening to them, and I don't mean listening to them to criticise them, I mean critically listening and understanding what the player, the singer, the band, the orchestra, the conductor is trying to say with that recording of it. Use the word why. Why does the passage in recording A really grab you, whereas the same passage in recording B doesn't? But at the same time, that the following passage after that, the tempo in recording B makes so much more sense to you than the tempo that happens in recording A. Or really dissect it and understand. The more you can delve into other people's performances of piece, the more you're drawing on that memory, that knowledge, your understanding, the sound world that you might want to create, and you're building your own personality as a player. And that's such an important thing to do. If there was only one correct way to play a piece, we could just get computers to do it. It's the human element that makes music interesting. It's a subjective art. Never be afraid to have an opinion on something. it doesn't mean that we have to go straight onto social media and decide that we've listened to several recordings and actually Leonard Bernstein's version of Mahler 5 is terrible. But it's building our own personality within what we like and who we want to be as a player. So that's a big thing, listening, critical listening. And that's the same for all styles of music. Roger Evans, I like jazz, so listening exposes you to the way different performers play around with the basic tune. Absolutely, it's possibly easier to demonstrate when we talk about styles in the jazz idiom because of the improvisation aspect. Absolutely, it's you hear someone's someone's personality in their performance a little bit clearer in that idiom, but it is still the same as all styles of music. Another question. Alexandra MCB, you spoke about learning the cello. Is the pairing for sax the violin? Yes, if you're a first study sax player, the pairing or the other instrument that will go with that is the violin. Yes. And I think that you can also play, if you also play flute, if you're a first study flute player, the other pairing is flute and sax. If you have any questions about job opportunities in the band service and instrument categories and auditions and all that kind of stuff, following me will be Corporal Amy Phillips, and she'll be answering all those questions. She's a specialist recruiter and she's got far more knowledge about all that side of the job and the band service than I have. So please do stay online and speak to her straight after this. Let's do a few more questions before we move on to another topic. Oh, Jasmine W13, what's the most valuable skill to have as a musician? Oh, that's a broad question. What would I say the most valuable skill is? I would say it's probably the most valuable skill, I think, is enthusiasm, actually. It doesn't really matter what standard of music, whether the very top of the professional, the business of music, or whether it's in a school band or anything else. If you enjoy what you're doing, playing music and listening to music, you're enthusiastic about it and you have a great attitude to it, you will always progress, and you'll want to progress because you're enjoying what you do. The day music becomes a chore, or the day you just, it doesn't matter how good you are, the day you don't want to improve anymore, or you don't think you need to improve anymore, is the day you may as well put the instrument back in its case. Lewis Klein, what's the best slide grease? Okay, well, it kind of depends on how old the instrument is sometimes. Some older slides work better with a cream. Personally, I use the Yamaha slide lubricant. It's quite similar to the Slider Mix, but it doesn't split when it gets warm. I find that it's a bit longer lasting. I've used that for quite a while. I quite like it. Sandyman23, how many mouthpieces do you have? Can you talk about each one? I have way more mouthpieces than I need. I've also got more trombones than I need, to be perfectly honest. I think I've got 7 or 8 trombones. I can give you a quick rundown of what I've got, or what I use regularly. The instrument I did the opening on is a Bach 12 with a brass slide. And the mouthpieces that I have used for a long time are these Doug Elliott mouthpieces with a Lexan plastic rim. Really good. I enjoyed. I got one for parade work for the winter and just really enjoyed the plastic rim on it. So I've kind of used those for about 10 years. That's a small bore instrument. I've then got a Bach 36B, which is a medium large 525 bore. It's kind of, this size instrument is really kind of underused or underrated, I think, for trombone stuff. It works really well for the wind band concerts that we do when we're doing a real wide variety of styles, anything from orchestral overtures through to shows to jazz combo stuff, big band stuff. It kind of sits in the middle of the more common sized instruments and does the job well enough for all of it if you want one instrument to do all the jobs. My large bore horn is a Edwards 396A, which is the Joe Alessi model. It's a non-modular, standard large bore size. That's great. I've had that about 6 years, I think. Really nice instrument. Yeah, it slots really well. I'm a fan of the sort of Bach, the way that Bach trombones play, the bass crook on the slides. They find them very open and they project sound really well. I've also got a bass trombone, which is a Yamaha 613G, and I've also got an alto trombone as well. Hope that answers the question a little bit on instruments, Sandy Man. WJ Knuckles, do you have any breathing techniques? Yes, there is lots and lots we could talk about on breathing. But I'm not going to... One of the masterclasses that's coming up in series 2 of these, which there'll be information out about very shortly, is going to be dedicated to breathing. So I'm not going to cover that in this masterclass. If you want to do a little bit of research first, go online and look up Arnold Jacobs. He's a tuba player with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra for many years. And if you don't, in fact, this is applicable to everyone. If you're a wind player and you don't know about Arnold Jacobs teaching, that's your homework. Go online and look up Arnold Jacobs breathing and his idea about taking the mind away from the mechanical process of playing and thinking about the product and all those kind of things. Go online and research it. It will be a great hour that you will spend doing it. Okay. Let's just touch on another subject. So we've talked about listening to recordings, but we can also develop as a musician while we're playing in ensembles, or it's not just personal practice and then we go to band, we play what we need to at band and then come home again and then do some more personal practice. We can develop so much while we're in an ensemble. Firstly, I'd push anyone, as I said with the clef question earlier, play in as many different types of ensembles as you possibly can. Absolutely everything. If you're a cornet player in a brass band, beg, borrow, steal a trumpet and go and play in a big band. You need to play so many different styles. There's so many benefits to it. Sight reading is a huge thing. One of the most important skills you can have as a player, to be able to sight read. And you will improve that if you're playing with more and more ensembles and more different styles. If you go to an orchestra, a lot of the trumpet parts will technically not be as challenging, but there'll be more of a challenge with transposition, reading in trumpet in A, trumpet in F, trumpet in F sharp. Just throw yourself into as many opportunities as you can. Same with trombone playing. If you play in a big band now, go and play in a brass band. Learn treble clef. Play a different style. You benefit so much from doing all that. Even little things. When we're in rehearsal, we can save time in a rehearsal by really paying attention to whatever the conductor's saying to other sections. Listen to how, if you're in a brass band, the cornets are doing a rehearsal on an 8-bar section that they've got, but we know 16 bars later that the trombones either play it with them or play it in place of them. Really be aware of what's being asked, how they're playing it, even if it's not being discussed. Listen to it if you're in bars rest. Same in an orchestra. If you're sat at the back of the orchestra and you might have 85 bars rest through something, don't switch off. Don't try and catch a cheeky 40 winks. Really pay attention to how the violins are phrasing something, the kind of vibrato they're putting on it, how the leader is playing that phrase and getting the rest of the section to follow him or her. We can learn loads from that and take so much into our own playing from everyone around us, good and bad. Actually, you can learn off somebody that isn't playing well, or you don't like what they're doing with a particular passage. It's still building that personality that I spoke of earlier. One of the probably the biggest or clearest example of listening to a band around you is in a big band situation. Whether it's style, dynamic, note length, vibrato, accents, rhythm, time, all those things are dictated by the lead trumpet. And as a trombone player, we sit in front. The big band is set up in its 3 rows for a reason. That lead trumpet player is in the middle, at the back, and all the sound is getting played straight into the back of your head as a trombone player. You have to have, as a lead trombone, you've got 2 ears straight behind you to the lead trumpet. If you're a section player, you've got 1 ear on your leader and the other ear on the lead trumpet. That has to be the way it works, and it's a really clear demonstration of listening around you. If our only interest is what we're playing and the music stand in front of us, that's when things don't sound together. That's the real difference. It's taking that next step to sort of think like a professional. Let's look at a couple of questions, because there is lots coming in here. Roger Evans, what are the keys to improving sight reading? Okay. So this was something Gordon covered in his sax masterclass a little bit. He had a similar question. There's obviously the obvious answer is go and do lots of it. The one for sight reading in an ensemble situation, the one bit of advice I'd give is really focus on rhythm and tempo. If we get, it's a very common fault when we're doing if we view sight reading as that one section for our associated board exam out of the sight reading book, and it's 8 or 16 bars long, and that's kind of how we view sight reading, and everything else is band pieces can be done on rehearsals. You're doing yourself a disservice a little bit, but in a band situation, tempo, time, and rhythm are the key things for me. The first, if you can play from left to right of a piece of music and get 90-95% minimum of the rhythms and stay in time for the whole thing, you are still a massive asset to the band that you're playing with. If you're too concerned, you can see a tricky section in the middle of that piece, and the time completely disappears from your inner metronome switches off. We switch our ears off to what's happening around us, and we slow down to look at, oh, is that an F natural or an F sharp? Oh, it doesn't. Well, we're no use for the rest of the piece because we've now got out of time with it, and we're messing up more than we would have done if we just got that one beat slightly wrong. So really focus on keeping that inner metronome going, and if you do misread something, be always aware of what that tempo is and where the next downbeat is, and find the next phrase with everyone. Andrew Troop, what is your proudest moment as a musician? Oh, that's a good question. Well, within the band service, there's probably two engagements that stand out. They're both the same year, actually, weirdly. 2012, the parade band gig, marching gig that I've enjoyed the most would be the London Olympic parade. After the Olympics, Collingwood band led a parade through the city of London with all the athletes, and I think someone might correct me, but I'm fairly sure the number they thought were on the street was about 2 million people. That was a crazy parade to be a part of. That was you did walk about 10 feet tall, march about 10 feet tall that day. And concert-wise, I think the concert I've probably enjoyed most, or the performance that sticks in my mind as enjoying the most, would be the Mountbatten Festival 2012. I actually did 2 solos that year. One was Urbie Green's version of On the Street Where You Live, which was brilliant. To get to play an Urbie Green song in the Albert Hall was absolutely fantastic. Also that year was the Giant Post Horn. And you don't get any prizes for guessing which out of those 2 solos people remember the most. Where's other questions? Camilla, how much should a grade 4 player practice? Oh, good question. As much as you can, I would say. I'll echo exactly what Gordon said in his masterclass. However much practice you do, make sure it's focused practice. So 10-15 minutes of really focused practice with when you set yourself a goal for the end of that session is much more beneficial than 45 minutes of just half concentrating and sort of just noodling around, really. Set yourself. You don't have to set yourself a time limit, but set yourself a goal and go off that goal, however much you want to achieve. Even if you do, in fact, what might entertain you for trombone players out there, if you haven't seen it, YouTube Christian Lindbergh's daily routine video. That's worth a look, and he practices in 24-minute chunks. He does 24 minutes and then has 6 minutes rest and then does another 24 minutes. Then he goes and does something else and he comes back and practice later in the day. Something along that line, 20 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes, but make it really focused practice will benefit you, whatever your standard. Any books that I recommend for learning other clefs? That's from KTW9211. There's a really good Blazevich trombone book that's just called Clef Studies. That's available online, actually. That's really good. That's focusing on, it starts in bass clef, then you add tenor, and then you add alto clef to that. The way I actually learned, I was a bass clef reader. When I had to learn treble clef, I went through the first few pieces that we were playing in that youth band, photocopied the parts, and I wrote over the bass clef note names above all of the notes in treble clef. Someone's still got those probably, and it's probably not helping someone. It's a bit confusing for somebody else, but that helped me a long way. And I was then just associating the note that I knew, the note name, with where it was on the stave. But just doing lots of it, slow things. Find some bass clef music, and if it's bass clef you need to learn, find bass clef music, just long slow notes, and just start learning the notes. But it doesn't really matter what you call them, start with, if you can read it, that's the first step. Joe Stevens, will this be available to view at a later time? My husband's a trombone player and really wants to watch, but has to go to work. Oh, sorry to hear that, Joe. Yes, it should be uploaded to YouTube pretty much straight after this is finished. Yes, it will stay up there for the future, as far as I'm aware. Okay, so the other topic, it was a question that I've seen asked in quite a lot of the other masterclasses, and I don't think it's been answered yet, but it's worth having a whole topic on this, because it's something that affects a lot of people, and it needs proper explaining, really. And that's performance anxiety, or how do you cope with nerves, I think was the question. So we're going to discuss a little bit about that. I'm just going to put a little disclaimer out there. I'm not a psychologist or psychoanalyst. I have no professional qualifications in performance anxiety. This is just personal thoughts, ideas that I've used and have found quite helpful. So I'm going to put some ideas out there, and hopefully if it helps one person, that would be brilliant. So first off, why do we get nervous? You've got to view it as a good thing. You get nervous or a bit anxious about performance because you care. You care what the outcome of your playing is going to be. If you didn't care, it doesn't matter. But because you do actually have a passion in what that outcome's going to be, you're anxious about it. That's fine. The experience that I'm going to try and explain, I kind of think of as a third person experience. And just say if this rings a bell with some of you, or you understand maybe you've been in this situation. When I say third person experience, we're stood in front of the band, we're playing, it's our turn to play a solo, and you become very aware that your mind is kind of wandering a little bit, and you find yourself watching yourself almost. You're experiencing your performance from either the audience's point of view or a member of the band, and you're kind of you become very self-aware, focusing on unimportant things. Become very self-conscious for do I look as nervous as I feel? Silly things. Is my bow tie straight? Is my fly done up? All those kind of crazy thoughts that enter our head when we're a little bit stressed about something. Just that, does that kind of, I'm seeing quite a few yeses coming up. Good. Okay. So, and then obviously the next step from that is we start self-analysing, especially if we've been in that situation before. You start asking yourself questions. Oh, that's my leg starting to shake again. It always does this when I do a solo. I knew my chops didn't feel very good today. I just felt wrong all day. This is going to go wrong. Blah 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 blah. I'm pretty sure it's my mouth starting to go dry. It always goes dry in this situation. I always struggle to play. Why does this always happen? Ha ha ha. But you'll notice these are all negative thoughts. None of this is a positive thing to try and improve the situation. We're at the top of that negative spiral, and it can only get worse from there. They're all unhelpful, and they're all just getting in the way of actually some positive thoughts and being able to concentrate on what we need to concentrate on. So a few ideas to try and combat that. Firstly, always tell yourself and remind yourself the audience is on your side. Wesley Allegro, morning dad, banana. Yes, the story goes, or apparently bananas are helpful to dealing with some of the onset of nervous symptoms. The potassium, I think it is supposed to kind of help with that a lot. Remember that the audience is on your side. They've chosen to come and watch your band, watch you, enjoy their evening out. They've chosen your concert. In many cases, they've paid money to come and enjoy your performance. They're on your side. They will see the good in every part of your performance. When we as performers might focus on the negative, the clipped note, the fluffed entry, the note that didn't speak, it doesn't matter what it is. We'll see the bad side of that. The audience will see the good side of everything else. And the second important wide encompassing point, remember to breathe. I don't mean just breathing as you're playing, but before you stand up. If it's soloing that affects you, just take that little moment as your name's getting announced. Just really take a deep breath, relax. It's amazing how much you can start controlling your heart rate and lower your adrenaline level just by relaxing. If we convinced ourselves before it even starts that it's going to go wrong and we're not going to enjoy it, we start shallow breathing, we walk out and we play the first note with no air and it doesn't go well, and we're on that spiral and we're just speeding it up. So those are a couple of fairly obvious thoughts. I think most people that will have thought of those things. There's an idea that might help possibly is kind of a bubble. The idea of a bubble over the stage, or over you as a player, or over you and the pianist in a recital. And the only things that matter, the only things you can or need to pay attention to, are what happens within that bubble. You can't see out of it. Anything that happens outside of it, in the audience or outside the window or wherever else, is irrelevant. You can only focus, or you should only focus on the things you can control, i.e. what you're doing with the instrument and the connection with what you're playing, what the band's playing, what the conductor's doing. Anything in that bubble of influence, let's call it that, that's the thing we concentrate on. Anything outside of it is totally irrelevant. If you concentrate on what the audience is doing, or if the fire door at the back of the village hall opens because somebody comes into the concert late while you're playing your solo, that's you cannot benefit by concentrating, by focusing on that. It can only be a negative thought. It might do absolutely nothing to your concentration, but it certainly won't improve it. So that idea of a bubble or a wall around the stage, however you want to think about it, it can be really beneficial. It's hard to stay in that mode of thought, but it's an idea to kind of hopefully improve that a little bit. The most important thing you can do is to stay in the moment, at the exact present moment that you're in within that piece. The only thing that matters is the note you're currently playing and the note you're about to play. Don't worry, even if something went fantastically well 8 bars ago, it's gone. Don't enjoy it. Don't think about why that went so well. The last thing you want to be doing is thinking about something in 2.5 minutes time and that high F at the end of the piece that you've split 3 times out of 5 in rehearsals. If you focus on that when you're still on the first page of the piece, you're not doing yourself justice. You're not in that moment. It's really hard to do, but that's so crucial. I've just seen a question, Trom 10,000. How do you commit a piece to memory? I'm just going to mention memory just for this second. There is one of the masterclasses in Series 2 is entirely how to commit a piece to memory. Stay tuned for when that's going to be. I hope that will answer your question. Okay, so we've thought about staying in the moment. And as scary as the thought can be to some people, and if you haven't done it, it's really daunting. But I find genuinely the easiest way to stay in that moment and keep your concentration on what you're doing is to actually play something from memory. The main reason being that if you're playing something from memory, you have no option but to absolutely be in the moment and concentrating on the note you're playing and the next note. If you think you can't afford to think about what's coming up, because you'll mess up where you are. You have to stay on that in that exact moment. The other benefit to if you're playing from memory, and those that have seen any of the Mountbatten solos that I've done, you'll might well have noticed that I probably 95% of the time that I'm playing, I play with my eyes shut. Two main reasons for that. One, because I'm visualizing the sheet music. That's kind of the way I memorize it. I'm looking at the piece itself. I know what the bottom line is on the first page, and I know which note it is that starts the second page, and that's helps me remember the form of the piece. Also, it it heightens your oral perception a little bit. You concentrate if you lose the visual sense. I find it heightens my ears. I'm more in tune with what the band's doing, and I'm hearing my sound better. And lastly, it avoids the easiest way to break concentration when you're performing, and that's eye contact. Usually with an audience member. But it can also be with someone in the band. If you've got a few bars rest and you turn round, you might catch someone's eye. And in that split second, eye contact, you're having a non-verbal communication with somebody. And it's the easiest way to put you back in that third person experience where you suddenly see yourself from that person's point of view. It doesn't have to be a look with any intention, but just seeing eye contact is a really quick way to break it. So I play with my eyes shut to kind of avoid that a little bit. I find I can put myself anywhere. The bubble idea, I'm back in this practice room quite often in my mind, and that's an easy way to do it. But you do have to bite the bullet and start learning from memory. It's a good thing to do. Hopefully that's given you a few ideas for performance anxiety stuff. Some other questions. Okay. How to play in the upper register without sounding strained. Okay. The same as every other brass instrument, it's the same thing. We can talk about embouchure, we can talk about air, we can talk about strength here, muscle mass, and all that kind of stuff. The one thing that is just as important but perhaps doesn't get discussed as much is use of your tongue. When you think of any method book, Arbon, Lafosse, or any of the others, they always talk about syllable changes for different ranges, from R or really low, R, up to, when we play high, we go to a T sound. Think about if you do it now, think about what your tongue is doing to make those different syllables. When you say tor to play in the low register, your tongue, this is the tip of my tongue, is very flat on the bottom of your mouth, in your mouth, to create a big resonance cavity between the roof of your mouth and the top of your tongue. As that syllable goes from tor, ta, 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 ti, 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 by the time we get to T, our tongue has come back and arched, meaning the gap from the roof of the mouth to the top of the tongue is now a lot narrower. What that does, if you think about a hose pipe, you put your finger over a hose pipe, the same amount of water or same water pressure coming through the pipe has now increased because we've covered some of the hole. So the same amount of water goes through a smaller hole. And it's exactly the same thing. When we talk about fast air to play higher, it doesn't necessarily mean you just have to go and then blow harder to play high. What you're doing with that tongue shape, concentrating on that E syllable, is you're forcing the same amount of air, if you keep blowing in a smooth fashion, through a smaller gap. So the air has to speed up to keep going through your embouchure and into the instrument. And you'll really find, just experiment after this, just play a high B flat, try and play that with an R sound or an all sound. You'll really feel that your embouchure is having to work so hard to cling on to that note. It will probably go really flat, but it will feel like it will feel an octave higher trying to do with that sound. Then do the same thing and really think E with the pitch, with your syllable, and that note will have a totally different ring to it. And try changing that syllable while you hold the note. You'll hear the pitch of the note waver. And then other than that, to play high without sounding strained, it's doing a lot of it. There's not really much else I can say practice-wise. You've got to do a lot of it. I don't want to we've only got 5 minutes left, so I don't want to talk any more about range. But syllables, really think about those. Crueler Links, any tips for braces? Frankly, no. I had braces for probably 2 years, I think it was. Absolute pain. The good news is they do come off. There used to be like little plastic tubes you could put over to stop cutting your lip and stuff. You kind of get used to playing with them for a while, and then they take them off and you think everything's going to be brilliant, and you can't play again when they come off either. So you have to get used to that after. In the long run, it's a good thing. Apart from that, there's no magical tips, I'm sorry. We got any other questions come in this box? No? Okay. Recommendations for method books. The book that Gordon Campbell pushes with us, or we use a lot, and I really like, it's a 3-part book. The Andre Lafosse method is really good. What I really like about it is that all the exercises in it, firstly, they're really well explained, but they're all very melodic. It's not page after page of kind of scaling exercises. They're all little tunes in themselves, but they've all got a really good purpose. They're all well explained. It's quite an old book, but still probably one of my favourites. For other studies, like the Coprash 60 Studies books is really good. And then some of the Blazevich stuff. I mentioned the Clef Studies book. That's really good as well. We have like 2 minutes left. Do I have any tips on learning to double, triple tongue? Okay, I definitely can't answer that question in 2 minutes. Have a go at it, really. The secret to being successful at multiple tonguing, in a very brief answer, may not be helpful, but just have it in the back of your mind, is trying to strengthen the ka. Too many people, we've all heard the phrase, oh, that sits right between single and double tonguing for me. There's no such thing as between single or double. That just means that we haven't learnt to control our double tongue and be able to do it slow enough. A really good way to start doing it is to do really basic exercises, basic studies, but only use ka. So ka, 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 ka. That's really, really useful. Make the ka syllable an articulation on its own, well controlled, and sounding as identical to the ta as you possibly can. The more it becomes a reaction to the ta, we haven't got control of it, and that's when you'll find there's gaps in the tempos that you can play at. Okay, we've got 1 minute left, so I'm going to finish off by showing you that. Take a screenshot, hopefully that's the right way round. Straight after me, Corporal Amy Phillips will be online answering all recruitment questions. There's a website, email on there, and a phone number. Also, if you want to upload anything for us to see, videos of you playing certain things, just get in touch with us. Use the hashtag RMBS Masterclass, and so we can see what you're getting up to. Thank you very, very much for joining me this morning. This is hopefully a very successful initiative that we've started with the band service. It seems to be we're getting a lot of great comments from it. I'm sorry it's only an hour long. I'm getting the warning flashes from Instagram already. I'd love to do this again. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been great to chat to you. Hope to hear from you in the future. Thank you very much, everybody.